morning, everyone. Let's hop across the pond. I'm rearranging my schedule, so I'm gonna have to leave here at 12:15 ish, I guess, to get there. But I'm blowing off one thing, and I'll do that tomorrow. So I'll be here for the next hour or so. Let's hop across the pond. The thing I want to hop across the pond is I want to give an update on what's taking place in, I guess you can say, Brexit politics from the last video. Got to be honest, I didn't particularly like the last video because there were problems with it. But nevertheless, I want to give a small update as to what's taking place now. We are in England, but let me put up my two people, because this one is going to be about Jeremy Corbyn, Theresa May, but with a larger context with regard to the European Union. As you know, Theresa May had a bit of success. Plan B, not the birth control option, or maybe you can call it a birth control option, but essentially it was after the defeat of Plan A, her Brexit deal getting trashed. I think by over 200 votes. Historic defeat, at the very least historic, going all the way back to like the 1900s. Theresa May was compelled to bring a Plan B, and that's what she did. She brought a Plan B within a few days. Now, Plan B was essentially Plan A, and it was expected that this was also going to get voted down, but the Prime Minister told Parliament to essentially vote down her own bill. Now, what this means is that it's called the Brady Amendment. The Brady Amendment, for all intents and purposes, says go back to the European Union and get them to remove the backstop, the Irish backstop. The Irish backstop needs to go. Now, if you can get them to do that, we will vote for your plan. Meaning your Brexit withdrawal bill can get over the finish line if you can get rid of the Irish backstop. So the Prime Minister, pleased as punch, gave a speech saying, it seems that we have a path forward, this is what we're going to do, etc., 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 and we're going to make this work. And so she has to drag herself, zombie Prime Minister, back to the European Union in order to get them to do something that they said they were never going to do. And the European Union, while the Prime Minister was giving that speech, had already came out and put a knife in her, saying, this is the withdrawal bill. The backstop is part of the withdrawal bill. And as we said, there will be no new negotiations on this withdrawal bill. You take it or you leave it. We'll give you a little leeway in the standpoint of interpretation, but nothing's changing. Kick rocks. Now, I don't know why the Prime Minister thought she was going to be able to change this after the last several failures in trying to change this, but nevertheless, she's going to try. The mandate. So I know what it is. This thing popped into my head. During one of the articles, they were talking about the Prime Minister feels she has a mandate because the Parliament sent her back as kind of resolute to go back and have a conversation with him. And she had this particularly British way of saying it that was awesome, where she was like, there's very little appetite for negotiation back in the European Union. No shit. That is a massive fucking understatement. There is no little appetite for negotiation. There is no appetite for negotiation. You're putting it far over the top for what it is. Nevertheless, that's what's kind of taking place. Also, reports are out that the European Union is very angry at Theresa May and very crossed at her because they believe she's putting party politics ahead of everything else. Now, I would say, for Theresa May's point, she doesn't have anything that can get through Parliament. Like, you guys can craft whatever you want to craft. At the end of the day, it still has to get through Parliament. And her Parliament is telling her no, that they would rather crash out of the European Union than acquiesce to a deal that is not necessarily in the best interest of Britain. And let's be honest, couldn't defend in a political campaign. But nevertheless, she has to go back and do it. They said they were cross at him. There's a very particular point, and back and forth, that keeps getting thrown out by the Prime Minister, by Jeremy Corbyn on this. Jeremy Corbyn keeps attacking her on a very specific front of take no deal off the table. This is massively disingenuous. Now, clearly, I am on the side of Corbyn from the standpoint of politics. I want him to win. I want him to take office. That's where I am. No hedge on that at all. I've been, euphoric as Corbyn has had his victories. So fair enough. But my responsibility to you is slightly different. Like, yes, I'm a person. Yes, I have political ideas that I want to espouse in the world. But the goal of the channel is to kind of give you a window into how my thinking of stuff. This is how I think about it. Sometimes it's overly nuanced. Sometimes it's a bit simplistic. But this is my thinking of stuff, and this is how I got to a particular point of view. So it's kind of that way with the Brexit thing, too. It's Jeremy Corbyn doesn't want to support a deal for the Prime Minister. Let's be clear. Jeremy Corbyn wants a second election. Now, he wants a second election because he believes that gives his best chance of taking power. That's the position of Labour. Labour is, I want to crash this government. If I can crash this government, I can get a new chance. And this is a ripe opportunity, seeing as all of these ministers have been leaving in droves, seeing as she is barely limping along as is, and yet she limps along. This is my best chance. It is not within his best chance to go along with anything that the Prime Minister comes up with if his objectives is to stop the Prime Minister. I hope you understand that. He's trying to stop her. The Brexit deal, but the Brexit deal is kind of a secondary thing. Ultimately, he wants to take power. The goal of this is to take power, and to do so is to stop her. If that's true, he needs to have an excuse of not to work with the Prime Minister. Right? I mean, ultimately, the country, to some degree, expects you to act above and beyond your party interests, these kind of vulgar party interests. And so the country looking at this has to have a reason that Jeremy Corbyn is deciding not to work with the Prime Minister. It needs to be a valid, it needs to be a legit reason. Well, hey, if you're going to have any chance of going for a no-deal Brexit, I don't want to be involved in this process. Now, beforehand, it was, I have a 7-point system that you need to, all that stuff. But then it's, I need you to take no deal off the table. No deal needs to be taken off the table, etc., etc., etc. He's asking her to do the very thing that can't be done. It is an impossibility. This is somewhat of an attack that is massively disingenuous, but is done so to highlight something that is impossible. It's an impossible task. You can't take no deal off the table because you're in the middle of a negotiation. It is logically impossible to do. The logical outcomes of what's being said here is somewhat monstrous. Let's take a look, listen to, and I'll explain further what I mean. So, it's funny, I don't feel like I should have to explain this, but it keeps coming up. He keeps sitting here on this front. And if people act as if like this is somewhat of a normal thing. I understand people don't want a no-deal Brexit. Fair enough. But not wanting a no-deal Brexit and hitting a no-deal Brexit are two very different things. Sometimes the game is lost. Meaning, there's some positions that you're not going to win. There's some positions that the best scenario for you is not necessarily the greatest of scenarios, but it's just better than the other scenario. Like, and some of those things are not determinative by you. Meaning it's not up to you on whether or not, at least not fully 100% on whether or not you have a no-deal Brexit. Just be very clear and understand that. Saying that you're going to rule a no-deal off the table is somewhat of an impossibility. And even if you did try to do that, that is a worse outcome. Take a look at this conversation. He keeps hitting her on this. And, fair enough. But, I mean, it's politics, but, disingenuous politics.
Corbyn! Mr. Speaker, I would be grateful if the Prime Minister would actually acknowledge that the House has voted to take no deal off the table. And can she assure the House that if she is unable to secure any legal changes to the backstop, that she would work to find a solution based on a comprehensive customs union, a strong single market deal, and the guaranteeing of rights and protections, rather than go back to the alternative that she's been threatening everybody with for months and months, which was to crash out without any deal whatsoever?
Prime Minister.
Last night the House did vote to reject no deal, but that cannot be the end of the story. The only way, the right honourable gentleman says, of course not. I think that's the first time he's actually accepted that you can't just vote to reject no deal. You have to vote for a deal. Otherwise, you leave with no deal. So far, he has opposed everything this government has put forward in relation to a deal. And he said previously he will reject any deal that the government puts on the table. Will he now? He says it's Prime Minister's questions, but people want to know his position as well. Will he ensure that if this government comes back with a revised deal that ensures we don't leave with no deal, he will actually support it.
That's awesome. God, I love British politics. But she's not explaining that right, nor is she explaining that well, because she's making certain assumptions. And she's saying, what she's saying is right. Look, you can't just say no deal. You also have to vote for something in order for there to be not anything. This is this kind of Hegelian proverb of sorts. You know, the slave is the master of the master in this case, and the master is the slave at times. A didactic comparison between the two things. But she's right on that front. You got to vote for something. And she's like, you don't want to vote for anything. No, he doesn't want to vote for anything because he wants your government to fail. But he doesn't want to be that vulgar about saying, yes, I want your government to fail because I want to get in power. He doesn't want to say that. So her point is, look, if I get a deal, if I come back with something, are you going to vote for it or not? Are you going to help me get this over the finish line or not? Or are you just going to reflexively stay where you are? Dan says he's going to reflexively stay where he is. As for the taking no deal off the table, that is an impossibility. How? It's almost like you go into a negotiation, let's say with the European Union, and you say, look, I'm not leaving out of here without a deal. And you hammer the door shut, you put an iron bar on it, you put a bomb on it, and then you put a shotgun on it to make sure that if anybody still tries to leave without one, you can shoot him in the back or shoot him in the knees. The door's locked. I'm not leaving here without a deal. And one gentleman from the European Union sends you the exact same deal that they gave the Prime Minister with the Irish backstop included. And you have just said you're not leaving out of here without a deal. So what are you going to do? Take it or leave it? What are you going to do? I guess my point is, if you're making this argument that you can fully take no deal off the table, then you're stuck with whatever the European Union gives you, because at the end of the day, either you're going to take it or you leave it. They can give you a horrible deal. They can give you a deal that's worse than what the Prime Minister gives. They can say, look, for all that you've put us through, we're going to make this deal that much worse, and we're going to make this deal hurt. And this is all that we're offering you at this point. Our interpretation of this is going to make this hurt. Take it or leave it. And what are you going to do? I guess I'm just making a point that this argument that Jeremy Corbyn is making that you can take no deal off the table is nonsense. There always, in any negotiation, has to be the potential for the individual to walk. If there's something, that's pressing on the individual during the point of the negotiation. Part of this, yes, there is a certain pressure on Britain in this negotiation. Yes, they do want to get a deal where they can have access to the single market. By the same token, that doesn't necessarily mean that you accept any and everything that the European Union gives you or requires of you. I just want that to be said. And if you're locking the door, then you're also locking yourself to accept pretty much whatever they give you, seeing as you're trying, you're not going to leave without a deal. I understand why he's doing this attack. I'm trying to explain to you why he's doing this attack. I'm just saying this attack is somewhat disingenuous, and this is somewhat of a fig leaf to come up with reasons to not vote for whatever the Prime Minister comes back with. And by the way, if she comes back with something, with a deal, that's not no deal. Jeremy Corbyn's point, though, is that she's using this no deal as a club to try to force people to sign into her deal, which he's right. She tried to eat the clock down, and she tried to shut out Parliament from these negotiations. Parliament asserted itself and pulled certain powers in and tried to lessen the blow of a no-deal Brexit, even though that's what the Prime Minister was holding over the head of Parliament. So this is, it's fascinating politics in regards to the way these guys are interacting with one another. But yes, Jeremy Corbyn is making an attack that he knows that the Prime Minister cannot acquiesce to. He's making that attack that he knows the Prime Minister can't acquiesce to because he's, let's be honest, trying to take power. You don't want to see him just nakedly out for yourself and this stuff. Let's see. I am missing something. I'm not going to keep this one long because I have another video I want to do after this. And I could have swore I saw. Oh, Akir the Immortal. I call myself alt-right and I want no deal Brexit. Wow. I'm immensely grateful for you, Jamarl. I appreciate that. No deal Brexit. just be aware of what that means. Look, I am agnostic towards this thing of Brexit. I'm not for it or against it. I watch it with a certain degree of fascination, in regards to how it's taking place. I would say this though, just honest man sitting, looking at the earth from the moon or something to that effect, it is going to hurt. Like, it is somewhat unpredictable in what is going to take place after Britain leaves the European Union, particularly if it leaves with no deal. This is supposed to be settled by March? And they still haven't even got a deal for the framework of the negotiations to go beyond Brexit. I got to be honest, I don't know what Brexit means. And everything that I've read up to this point looks like it is going to hurt. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be Armageddon. It doesn't mean it's going to be the end of the world. But it does mean that there's going to be a readjustment period that may not necessarily be in the benefit of Britain. Just saying. Not to mention, they're probably going to try to cut regulation, cut services, cut these things to the bone, importing chlorinated chickens, as I heard one guy say. So just be careful what you wish for and who it is going to hurt. Who it's going to hurt. All right, I'm going to end this. Can't be long off where you'll have an interactive porn and you can select the face of anyone and anybody. Frankenstein porn, mega corporation like Micro Heart. Oh man, that would be an awesome 420. Not this specifically the porn, but the other thing. Like, getting to the point where there's just a microchip that's on the back of your head, on the base of your skull, and it's sending signals that spoofs the signals going to your brain. Oh man. When it hits that point, it is going to be a fuckfest. Stopping the pain of immigration is priceless. There is no pain of immigration in Britain. And don't get me wrong. When I understand, I was looking at the stuff showing the migration patterns, like the amount of people who are immigrating into Britain. And it was high, but there are also Brits who are immigrating in the other countries. I was in Germany, and I came across this Brit who had a coffee shop. He had been in Germany for 20 years, 10, 15 years or something, married a woman in Germany while he was after military service. Brits also live abroad. It's not just a one-way process. And I feel you on the strengthening immigration stuff, if that's the way you're looking at it through that lens. But let's be honest, the issues with Britain is not subject to immigration. Like, it's not these people keep coming into the country, that's why my life is fucked up. That it's not true in the United States. I have a hard time believing that it's true in Britain. But okay. I do remember at one point a large number of people were coming into Britain. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I would have voted for Brexit, if I'm being honest. I mean, the question becomes, can Jeremy Corbyn institute the policies that he wants to institute? Or will the European Union stop him from doing so? If that answer is no, Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't be able to implement the policies that he wanted because it would conflict with the European Union, then yes, you're right. I agree with you at that point of you need to get out. If you don't have the sovereignty within your country itself, then there's a problem. Now, don't get me wrong, sovereignty is always ceded to a larger body the moment the large body is created. Meaning the moment that there's something over the states, then states are going to lose some degree of sovereignty just to be a part of the larger organism. And the organism itself takes a mind of its own. So, fair enough. If they're going to involve themselves in an economic union, there are going to be certain regulatory ties between the countries themselves. But what if the country remains sovereign? And what does it mean to be sovereign in a context like that? I think those are fascinating questions. What agency should a country have within the context of a larger organization or larger body? But to me, it boils down to kind of more so that than the immigration thing. Can I, as a country, implement the policies that I want to implement? If that answer is no, then if your country is in that mindset to implement those policies, maybe your country needs to walk. But again, be aware, it will hurt. It will hurt. It would hurt. Let's be honest about it. Good morning, JT. We need a 420. Thanks for being thanks for being you. We need a ST Star Trek 420. I've been trying to think of one. I've it's easy to just sit there and binge watch Star Trek. But the one I've been thinking about is not Star Trek. The one I've been thinking about is kind of digital woo woo, like this like the guy here earlier mentioned putting the thing on the back of the neck and so forth. My thought was more so kind of like what's in Dark Mirror, where you could take a picture of an individual's consciousness. It's like a snapshot. Now, I suppose that snapshot is a certain indicators that allow you to give a predictive model of how the person is going to respond. Like a kernel of code. Like if you had that one kernel of code and you programmed it with certain things and you say, all right, now go out and be you. And you have a snapshot of the individual. Now the catch becomes, is that individual really feeling anything, or is that individual just pretending to feel those things? And if it's pretending to feel those things, then, but it's another thing if it is. Like I find this stuff amazing. Like, say for the moment, you can't create the consciousness in that way. Like, yeah, they have a hard time modeling it or whatever else. But what you could do is pick up the signals that are the brain are responding to, and you graft those signals into this kind of digital framework. So the individual, when he moves his arm, it moves his arm. When he moves his leg, it moves his leg. But it kills the signal to the body and just uses the signal in the mental space. You would effectively be able to put a person in a digital system and pick up the cues from the individual. And before you say, wow, this sounds kind of out there, they do it now to some degree, a minor degree, where they can do a brain scan and say, this person's thinking of a horse, a cat, a boat. Like picking up how people think about these things and try to model it. It's fucking fascinating, man. This digital stuff. Absolutely digital stuff. Troy had fun with Worf. You mean in all the decks? Oh God, that's so grisly. That's so grisly. Can you imagine that? Like you work somewhere, and yeah, think of it that way. You work somewhere, and they've gotten to the point where they can digitize consciousness and put people in games and everything else, and they allow you to take a picture of somebody and graft that person into the space. Meaning anybody that has a picture of you or a few pictures of you can graft a being that for the most part looks like you, and you can give it whatever personality you want, but ultimately graft that being and put it into the game space. Invariably, porn will get their hands on this. I guarantee you, porn will get their hands on this. And they would have gangbangs of pretty much any celebrity that you wanted. Hell, they would allow you to participate in those gangbangs. Hell, you may even be the person being gangbanged. Or you could be more muted about it. Perfectly chaste in most such situations. But taking pictures of the people at work and having them in depraved positions. Like, this is going to get dicey real quick. Rape jihad would be the immigration pain in the UK. Oh, God, I don't know what that means. What the fuck is a rape jihad? What the hell is a rape jihad? Relationship with Troy on the holodeck. Troy was hot, man. Troy was hot. She was my person on that show. Like, everybody has somebody who they lust over. At least, maybe, I think so. I'm assuming everybody acts that way or feels that way. Troy was my person. And it wasn't for the obvious reason that she was attractive. That is true. It was the emotional temperament and what it means. Like when you're listening to radio or for something to that effect. Let's say you're rocking out over a band. I used to wow out over music, still do. And I would find myself, depending upon the person, feeling a commonality with the individual based on what the individual is saying and how that individual is getting across when they're rocking out. Now, this is somewhat of a false thing. This is only an aspect of an individual that is being put out. And I'm not talking about corporate artists where these guys are just, reciting music. I'm talking about like a band. And that band is wilding out. And the artist is flipping the fuck out on a stage. And you are flipping the fuck out with her. Like, that's the stuff that I'm talking about. Where you feel like there is a real connection, not because she knows you, but more so because the stuff that she's saying resonates, or he resonates with you in that way. John Mayer, for example. John Mayer, when he did his first album, his very first album, him and I are the same age. And something he was saying in that album was coming about. I was like, God damn it, man. He is singing my soundtrack. Like, where it was this growing up thing. And his album was that way. I think it was like 24 years old when he did. Or other artists, hardcore artists. Like, Raina Maria is not hardcore. But she has certain songs where she's talking about, like, relationships, just like fights. And you're like, wow, I feel that. I'm talking about that. It's that level of connection sometimes that you feel, and that level of connection feels a particular way to you. It feels good. Troy, if you remember, was, and I know this is a large explanation to explain why I had attraction to Troy, but being an empath, she gets it. Like she would get you without you having to get across what the fuck is going on within you. I found that level of connection terrifying in one respect, but if you can get over it and you're strong enough to deal with it, liberating. Like, I don't know. I liked her character. Her mom, yeah, I liked her mom too. Her mom would have been, her mom would have annoyed the shit out of me. Like, can you imagine? Like, you're thinking to yourself, like, God, I hate this bitch. And her mom is looking at you like, fuck you too, man. You haven't said a word. Maybe she did something. For human beings, our emotions kind of flip on a dime. And it's not always espoused. You may just feel a particular way. But oftentimes, you just keep the shit in and you go on with your business and you feel a particular way later. But you can't do that in that situation. Like, you're always in a situation where whatever's in you is being exposed. And to some degree, like I said, it's liberating. And another degree, it's somewhat terrifying, especially if it's somebody you don't particularly like. So I used to love her mom. Her mom was awesome too. Her mom was awesome. All right, I'm going to end this because we've gone into the weeds, like, big time. We're in the fucking weeds. But yeah, Star Trek. Catching up on Star Trek. All right. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. That's funny. Yeah, Trudy. I like that word. I need to get a thing where you can, like, place those things up. Jamarl, you got over 100 views on your neoliberal race baiter core video in less than an hour. You know what? I had like 250 people on that video. I was shocked as shit that people were watching that video. Yeah, I had a lot of people in the video. Apparently people are interested in Corbyn running for president. I am not one of them. But apparently those people exist. So, thanks all. I'll see you guys in a few. In fact, in a few minutes. I still have an hour or so before I leave. Thanks all.